to you, Hojjat. And again, thank you for coming again for this term.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Sharma. Thank you. And thank you, everyone, for your time today. Um, my name is Hojjat Salemi. I'm business development officer of Renovos, looking at technology and business partnerships at Renovos. What I'd like to do today is talk about uh, ethics and disruptive technology, and then use AI robotics as one framework uh, that we can discuss in more details. So, in terms of my agenda today, I thought we just maybe go over it quickly about why it's important to understand semiconductor market, even if you're looking at a course on ethics, and then talk about some of the issues which starts the ethical issues with the why, and then talk about creative destruction and how technology works with creative destruction, and then talk about one short video. Then we're gonna run and see what you think, and then at the end talk about, is AI robotics any different than past technologies that everybody was worried about, and basically progress happened and really nothing major happened. Um, so my background, I've actually started in Ottawa and then worked in some of the high-tech companies in Ottawa. First, the startup was a Skystone with two very good friends. It was acquired into Cisco. It was their first acquisition outside US. When Cisco acquired Skystone, I got a feel of the culture of Silicon Valley, and I was there for about 4 years. Really worked with mostly US and Israel, and really got a flavor of, let's say, the East Coast versus West Coast culture. Then left Cisco, I started another company called Cortina System. We grew it from zero to about 250 million revenue. And in that one, basically, we had sites in India, Shanghai, Taiwan, and US and Canada. That one was acquired by Inphi, and then Inphi was acquired by Marval. And then basically at that time, I left to the Valley, to Silicon Valley to take Cortina public. Stayed there for a number of years, and then for family reason, I came to Canada, and then now I'm doing my third startup, which is Renovos. Um, so uh, During these times, I basically noticed that semiconductors, uh, I was basically very lucky to really ride this wave of semiconductors. From early on, we were designing chips to nowadays that these chips are, billions of transistors, and at the rack level, they're like a giant supercomputer, unbelievable. And really, transistors are one of the foundational technologies, they call it GPT, general purpose technology, like electricity and so on, that has been impacting every field. And I hope to show you how relevant it is to understand it. Um, as you can see, it's now actually a fashion that every company, as you can see, for example, let's just get the, uh, sorry, let me just grab the pointer here. So as you can see, CEO of Microsoft, then Jensen Huang of NVIDIA, Lisa Su of AMD, and obviously President Xi. It's just all about this computing power and how important it is to own it, because it's one of this foundational technology. Um, And there is a lot of talk, and I'm assuming you can actually stay away from not hearing importance of semiconductors and chips. And and one of the reason is really um, their exponential nature in terms of what they have done in the last 50 years. So if you go back to early days of semiconductor, you could do a small chip in 1970, and I think it was like 2000 transistors, as you can see here, something like yeah, let's say rounded to 2000, and then suddenly you come into uh, 30 clock tick later, which is 60 years in this case, you're looking at, a billion times that. So what this thing did, it's really compute power plus software, and together they're just this foundation of creating disruptive technologies. And and they from my side, when I saw it, it was really in the uh, late 90s when Cisco acquired Skystone. I'm going to the Bay Area a lot, and I noticed that what is happening there is small companies coming in, like Amazon, and basically completely changing the way at that time we were buying books. And I realized, the disruptive technologies come in, and without us noticing it, it completely changes the way we do things. And then thinking about it, I say, okay, so where these ethical issues, where are those sources of those ethical issues? And and to do that, I noticed that there are simple example like this Midas touch. First, when I, look at this, I say, wow, what a simple example. But it's so profound the more you think about it. So the idea is that King Midas, made a wish. That wish was that if he touches anything, turns to gold. And obviously, he was very happy if he touched something, turned to gold. But then he tried to eat or tried to uh, hug the daughter, and says, "Oh no, I didn't want to turn what I eat into gold, and I didn't want to touch my daughter and turn it to gold." So, what do you, what this simple example outlines is that we make these wishes, and during these wishes, it's very difficult to understand the second order effects or third order effects. And obviously, they gave a very simple example, which is quite obvious, but through this simple example, is highlighting why it's so difficult. We are driven by our wishes, by our desires of new technologies. And then we don't understand what does it impact. As an example, for example, we make a wish, we need to fly. We look at birds and we say, wow, one day, I guess in the 1800, people said, I wish to fly. So when you look at that, you say, well, you know, first time, this is the Wrights brother. I'm sure most of you have read about the history. If you look at it, he's laying down here, this area. Uh, and then they were actually bicycle mechanics. And then, if you look at it, you look at this technology and you say, oh, 120 feet in 12 seconds. Big deal. I have horses, I have these cars, they're like so reliable. Like, well, what is this? It's not going to do anything. So when you look at technologies at the beginning, they look almost completely useless. And then they completely shape depending on how they grow. So this one, obviously, we say, wow, we take these things for granted. You go take a plane from here to Asia, boom, 15 hours later you're there. And then you weaponize. So every technology we look at has this double-edged sword. We provide some useful things, and then on the other hand, it has harmful effects. We use it for weapons. So everything we call it a tool and weapon, every technology that we have created. Then, obviously you can expand it to, wow, is this going to be, delivery by robots, and then job displacement because of that, repair of some, wire lines of high transmission, or job displacement because of that. And there's all these cases we can build. Also, there is second or third order effects, which is COVID-19, any type of infectious disease that, for example, because of this connectivity, because we are so interconnected, COVID-19 became relevant. Like, for example, if there was no transportation on Earth, maybe people in North America and Europe wouldn't even heard about what happened in Wuhan or wherever it started. So, so the disruptive technologies come in and basically tools and weapons, and then our wishes for these new technologies, which is constantly, it very hard to predict second and third order effect. Now, so what happens, when we think about these technologies, is very hard to grasp the complexities of it. Like, for example, social media is one. Uh, no matter what you think about Mark Zuckerberg, I'm sure when he started it, he never wished that it would have impact on young people about, their selfie and suicide rates and all that. So no matter what you think about it, he never thought about that. So these are the complexities of the new technologies that are very hard to predict. Um, and if um, uh, this picture shows basically I'm old, and this is from when I was young and watching Star Trek. And if you look at that, I think is a perfect analogy that we can't slow down the progress. And you have heard this everywhere. Any new technology comes in that is moving fast. The first question is, oh, we should slow it down. We should understand it. We should have global collaboration. And in my opinion, it's never happened and it would never happen because, it's very difficult to even get a consensus in an area like Ottawa. Imagine like globally. Everybody has their own agendas and nobody trusts anybody. So why would they do it? And I think what we are after, we always going to continue to make wishes. And that's because we're basically built in to discover new frontiers. We're just built in because, at the end of the day, we are aware of time limit. And because of that, we always look for how to extend our lifeline. And then why we are here, what is up there in the universe, what's the purpose of this life and all that. That drives technology development. One of the primary reasons that we drive that. So so looking at that, so we started by saying, semiconductors and white matters, and then making these wishes, and then always looking at something better we need, some new technology to simplify life or to expand our horizons. So now looking at creative destruction, um, uh, it's a very interesting one, basically says um, technology brings a new way of doing things and then destroys an old way of doing things. So that's the foundation of the technology. So you have examples of that everywhere. And it really radically changes things right in front of our eyes. And then we see it every day. We see it every day. So, uh, it's hard to believe that, ChatGPT, Gemini, Claude, all these were meaningless, let's say 3.5 years ago. Nobody would have understood what we were talking about. Now you can even go to a kindergarten and everybody says, yeah, I know what ChatGPT is. So really these disruptive technologies growing exponentially And really, the way we do things is completely disrupted. So I'll show you an example. This is from Radio Shack. If any of you remember, usually they delivered papers to houses. Those days there was something called Ottawa Citizen, and then somebody came and dropped so much paper at your door, and the advertisement was like this, and you see, like, look at the timelines. I'm not talking like 1800s. I'm talking 2007 to 2015. And if you look at that, there were so many gadgets that basically all of those got destroyed and got integrated into a smartphone. So creative destruction works this way, and the way it's happening, for example, uh, video cameras. I mean, if you look at the size of it and all that, uh, the pictures we took with Kodak, you took 24 pictures barely in 6 months. Now you take in a wedding, they take thousands of pictures, and everything we were doing with the new technology changed the way we are consuming it. So then with that, when a new technology came, it brought ethical issues with it. It just came with it. Like, so the ethical issues, obviously all these are very well documented, and I'm sure you're well aware of it. So attention spans is talked about, mental health, privacy, which is destroyed, using maps, you lose your spatial awareness, uh, your battery on your Tesla or any electric car or your phone, how resources are extracted from this, or lots of ethical issues. Uh, Having access to these, you may have much better education background where the other side may not. The educational divide creates, and then surveillance. And then you look at these, and every technology comes with a set like that you have to deal with. So again, when we asked for mobile phones, I wish I could carry a phone. We never said, oh, by the way, I wish I had a map, but then we then say, oh, I'm going to lose my spatial awareness. That's one of the things I'm going to lose. Or when we had this connectivity, we say, oh, privacy is important. So all these comes in because of this understanding of this complex risks with it. Um, Now, if you look at an example like this, so there is cases that you look at, like I just want you to imagine uh, all of us are a taxi driver in this car. So we're sitting there and the radio is on. It's 2007. And then for some reason, the radio is on a station that wants to talk about, oh, there is one gentleman called Steve Jobs. They introduced iPhone. And then we change the channel. It goes to another one. It says, oh, by the way, there is some technology innovation around Moore's law, and transistors are growing at the speed of this. And at that time you would say, I just don't care. I'm here as a taxi driver. I want to check one plus two to B. Then, what happens is technologies on the iPhone, especially GPS, maps, access to cloud, these three technologies combine, and suddenly somebody, if you guys have read the Uber story, they were in Paris and they're waiting for a limo, and they said, wow, you never know when this limo is going to show up. And then that's where the idea of Uber came. The idea of Uber came, they came in to San Francisco, they started a company, and then they focused on limos. And then they realized, no, 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 it's a much bigger market. And then they started in the cities, and now obviously is everywhere. But what it did, you see, if you look at this, the taxi drivers, their lifeline was the taxi plate ownership, because the whole entire asset that they had was this taxi plate value. So just take a look at it. You're just going in, so it's going up, as you can see, and around this time suddenly it starts dropping. you know And and is the chat, is it possible to use the chat?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. So I was just curious, anybody can guess why this time, around this time, not 2007, suddenly the taxi plate start dropping?
You can
Just
raise your
curious.
hand as well, and then I can call the person if you don't
Or you
want to
can
put in
put it on the
chat.
chat line, whatever
Yeah,
works.
yeah, whatever you like. Okay, yes, go ahead.
Is around that time that Uber came in the market?
A bit earlier, yeah. So the screen gets much better. So the Uber actually came in around this time, you know, but the screen technology, the penetration of Google into Uber into these markets took a bit of time, and then suddenly this is where Uber became, household name, and then it started dropping. See, so again, if I look at it, you see, so you look at transistors, you look at all these things, and then you don't look at what is a job displacement or value of a owner of a taxi is getting destroyed. So you never tie these things to second, third order effects of disruptive technologies. And that happens. Now you continue on Uber and then you say, well, who are they disrupting next? So all of us use Uber Eats all the time. And then any guess who they are disrupting next?
Any volunteer? Okay, Asha.
Amazon with their delivery services.
That's one. Yeah, that's one. And the one that I was just thinking of, again, it's so obvious, but we don't think about it. All the restaurants and with self-driving delivery. Because if you look at the restaurants, they're getting all the data from people. See, all of them are like all of us are willingly giving our choices, our food to Uber Eats. So Uber Eats is finding out that, for example, we like Italian usually, or Greek, or Persian, or this, or Indian, or whatever. So then they have this map. Now imagine a dark kitchen or a cloud kitchen that can be in neighborhoods and just make those foods with robotics. It would be much more fresh, faster delivery. So again, if you make a wish that I want my food to be customized to me, I want it to be fresh, I want it to be fast delivery, why not? You see what I mean? So then suddenly restaurants so first taxis got, and I don't know if you guys notice, if you go to any city, I was in St. Louis like in November and December, I took a taxi, it looks so run down. Next day, I took an Uber, boom, a Tesla car shows up. Because, the money is going somewhere else. The taxi is struggling. So this job displacement is costing things, as we make these wishes. So then you pass the uh, thing, we talk about creative discussion, and there is lots of creative discussion we can go through, that they are very interesting around everything getting disrupted. Now, what actually I'd like to do is uh, maybe let me see, put this in the chat because I don't think I can play it because sometimes the video doesn't come out right on the Zoom. So I'm just going to send this uh, on the chat. So this video is about I think like less than 2 minutes. Most of you may have seen it in high school or any first year psychology course. So what I now do is just take maybe 2 minutes and just take a look at it, and then we come back in 2 minutes. Sounds good? Okay. So let me see if I can go back to. Can you guys see the slide still?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. Okay, so again, I'm sure most of you have seen this. Um, the reason I brought it up, it's one of those videos that you can really interpret it in a variety of ways. So I found this very impactful. It's whoever uh, created it for selective attention, but has a lot of meanings. So to me, these disruptive innovations are those gorillas, and we don't really appreciate them till they really passed, and they have made a big impact. Uh, yeah. And it's interesting because 50% of the people who watch it for first time miss the gorilla. It's not really, it's just a beautiful video highlights some of our blindness. And if you saw it or didn't, it doesn't matter, but it really highlights where we are blind. So when we make the attention, we're very focused, we miss some big things which are going on. And today, I think there is a lot going on that it's just we are missing. We're missing these massive trends. For example, let's talk one gorilla. One gorilla is that social media is so entrenched with, let's say, if you're TikTok, Instagram, or whatever, um, then, some statement that before was very valid, you know, government of the people, by the people, for the people. You see, if you look at that, for example, if you're a US citizen and you say, wow, or a Canadian citizen, and you say, we choose our government by the people, for the people, but it just becomes completely nonsense because of so much interference that can be done and changing the way we think. It was done very well documented, again, as you have seen in the 2016 election. There was a lot going on, but if you agree or disagree that impacted the election, it doesn't matter. But I think if you look at what was those algorithms running in the background, for example, if you are against, let's say, abortion, it would decide which candidate you were leaning toward and then give you ads that this candidate is against abortion. You see, so then they try to move you to the not vote or somehow change you. And it shows how easy it is to manipulate it. So again, a second order effect, what we call socially disruptive technologies, which is, again, when social media came, we never thought about this in terms of ethical impact of it. So that's one gorilla. Then the next one, you see it everywhere. You say, oh, robots are coming. But actually, robots are everywhere. Robots are everywhere. So it's not like they are coming. They're just entrenched everywhere. Anything you do, you're using robots. So again, the gorillas are there and they're just passing, but we're just so busy and distracted on other things that may not see this. Uh, any manufacturing line, I don't know which one is it, yeah, Tesla or this, I mean, you guys have seen these pictures, just like massive automation. So robots are everywhere. So the way we thought robots are there, we never thought about it. Like, I give you one example. Like, I remember in 2000 time frame, I had a Nokia phone and then a BlackBerry. And people would tell me, oh, mobile is going to be big. Mobile is going to be big. And then I always ask, I said, what is it that, what is, because if you recall, the screen of a Nokia phone was 1 inch by 1 inch black and white with a couple of dots that barely you could see even the writing on it. So people said, oh yeah, it's gonna be, HD voice or this. None of those came true, but what came true is bigger screen, computer, and the phone actually became anything but a phone. We call it an iPhone, but it's actually not a phone. We don't use it for a phone. If you have teenagers, you know that they're always texting and they're not actually calling anybody with the phone. Then, you have these issues that well documented again, about trolley problem and the decisions we made. And then they show these cases that creates these ethical issues that you would decide one way and in another way you decide another. And then, you come up to a situation now that you say, who is making those choices? Do when you get a car, you go and say, oh, I want tires at this with this type of rims. Is it a case that when we buy self-driving car, they give us features that how do you protect instead of accidents? Who do you save? Who you try to save? And then, you go into second and third order effect of these choices. So then we go to now the end of it, is now after all these, we talked about disruptive technologies, how compute is growing and so on. It would be interesting to say, okay, these issues have been always around. Now, is this time different? So, is this another Luddite situation and it's just going to pass? All this hype about AI, maybe we are overreacting. And then the same way, the machines automated, uh, things in I think it was late 1800, nothing changed. Progress happened. There was some disruption, but nothing major happened. There was other jobs that displaced it, and life went on. Is this time different with AI robotics? Is it more impactful? And maybe I just spent a couple of charts, share opinion, then we can open it for discussion to hear your thoughts. So one area that maybe you can argue is different is that, see, for the first time, we have these software, let's call it deep learning, but I call it sophisticated layers of software. So for example, in the case of AlphaGo, AlphaZero, AlphaFold, is deep learning, Monte Carlo reinforcement policy. It's massive layers of complex software that use for discovery. So one thing they proved easily, this is like a few years now, they said, well, if you apply it to a game, so to a game, it's a bounded, moves are unknown, and it's very hard to beat the machine's algorithm with these games. So I'm sure most of you that play chess, you don't believe you can beat these algorithms. It's very hard, one small mistake you lose. Even I tried backgammon. You just like with some simple app, my score is like I'm not a bad backgammon player, and it's just rolling the dice and making not mistakes. I think the score on the thing is like 450 for the machine. I'm like 79. So any mistakes, boom, you lose, one mistake. So this is proven that the first time we have these sophisticated machines that we call them semiconductors, compute engines. You put sophisticated software on it, you put application on it, and they become very powerful. So one example, if again, as you have heard, AlphaFold from DeepMind, and uh, I I don't know how many of you know him, is Denis Hassabis. So he was the CEO of DeepMind, and then that Google acquired. And then if you use Gemini today, that's Denis Hassabis' work. All of it is Denis Hassabis' work. And if you look at this Nobel Prize in chemistry, see there is two AI engineers, one chemist, two AI engineer. Very interesting, It's imagine like, winning a Nobel Prize in chemistry, two AI engineer and one chemist. So again, you look at this and you say, geez, this has never happened before. This is the first time. So then you say, okay, so if you have energy as the layer 0, layer 1 is the compute semiconductor, layer 3 is really LLMs and these complex software, layer 4 is application. You can really start doing a lot of things. And I'm sure most of you have had conversations with Gemini, ChatGPT. Just imagine in the last 3 years what they have done. See, that's what I said at the beginning on the exponential. So paying attention to that exponential growth. See, like 3 years ago, they made a lot of mistakes. Today, they are actually pretty good. And imagine like in 10 years, you remember that exponential curve I show you? In 10 years, they may be 1,000x better. If they go per year, if they go faster, maybe 10,000 better. So that's one area to look at. Now, the other thing, these compute infrastructure are massive. So again, I'm sure most of you have seen Meta new data center. They just wanted to show it as an analogy how big it is. So basically, as you can see, the size of Manhattan. That's a data center. You know, gigawatts of power, and then imagine how much compute power with software, which they can do on any problem solving. So again, you pay attention to that. Then you go in, radiologists are always picked at, they say, oh, okay. So if all these true, so then like radiologists should be out of job by now. So okay, so because radiology is really pattern matching, understanding, looking at a scan and understanding a disease and picking it up and helping the patient to understand what has to be done. So if you look at the data today, it's actually the numbers going the other way. The numbers are growing for radiologists. One of the examples that they have given is that they are more productive. There were less of them. There were a big shortage. And then they were more productive. And now they can do more because AI helps them to detect where they spend so much time on an image. Now the AI can analyze it, give them the data. They can spend more time with the patient and all that. So that's one thing that, I need some work. Like, is this time any different? So radiologist is one. Then you go on software. Again, I don't know how many of you are doing software, but if you're doing software, I'm sure you're using code. It's just like, it's becoming obvious that it's a major impact. All the software guys we have at work, they use Claude, and there's like they always say, "Oh, maybe about 50% of my code is written by Claude." So again, does it allow us to be more productive? They call it Copilot, so it's helping you to navigate this and do more, or all the junior entry jobs would maybe squeeze a bit. You don't need that much junior people in the company. So that's another second order effect of this. So then you go to, where the money goes. Today, if you look at it, you say, okay, where is all the venture capital money going to? Majority of it. And billions of dollars of this is a lot of it is going toward, obviously energy is one big one. So energy is massive. Robotics, no brainer. Obviously anything to do with AI. Then we have like the crypto blockchain, and then basically healthcare. If you look at the uh, healthcare segment, there's massive investment done. And then, these are just the beginning where the money is going into. Um, so then, it's very hard to miss this, isn't it? You cannot miss this gorilla that they are just like continuously innovation on what's going to happen with these. Is it the shape of army is going to change? Is it every home is going to have one? Is it they're going to do some of the difficult tasks that nobody wants to do, maybe like mining, going to a nuclear reactor, or sending them to space to do some work, so then, sometimes it's not clear, like that 2000 example I gave about mobile is going to be big. We know this is going to be, robotic is going to be big. We already talked about it. That is already big. But where is it going to go, and what ethical issues is going to bring up? Um, the other one was, a lot of work was done on, what they call digimi. So the idea was that, if you have something that completely follows you, understands you, reads every book you read, and then reads thousands of more, and then, for example, can even go to meetings and represent you, and nobody would know. It's not you, it's the digimi, or you can have lots of digimis. So then, you look at, okay, how this segment is going to grow. Before, we couldn't even dream of this. But then, little by little, I said, wow, if ChatGPT gets better, Gemini gets better, if I'm looking at that exponential curve, if Gemini in 3 years did this, and I give it another 10 years, 5 years, is actually would be even better, then, definitely a DigiMe of me would be a much better. First of all, there would be no accent. So that's gone. Second, maybe looks at all your social medias, all this stuff you guys read, talks to your Digimes, and then maybe shows up, or the whole thing becomes useless because it's not needed, because they just talk together and say, oh, this thing was about blah blah blah, and we got it. So I feel like, would this time be different? It's really, we have to really pay attention to it, because um, the way government, corporations, and all time move, technology is moving a lot faster.
Mm-hmm.
And to keep up with it is not like before, you know. That's that. And then, you have people who are deceased, so they continue. What do we do with that? Ethical issues on that, um, um, the time concept of time. So that's another one. Then, you look at something and you are, let's say, dead against it. You say, oh, surveillance, not good. Let's say we should not live in a surveillance society. Then you look at technologies which are extremely powerful. And then you may say, well, actually, it's good to have surveillance. See, like the case for surveillance, let's say if everybody could build, let's say, atomic bomb in their basement. In Ottawa, I would be definitely willing to say, please provide surveillance to people, trusted government, that we don't have one nutcase suddenly blow the city. You see what I mean? So there's stuff that sometimes we are pretty sure about it, and we say, oh, we don't want surveillance. China is this, China is that. Maybe they're ahead. Maybe actually they're way ahead of us in terms of thinking. You remember they didn't allow Facebook, Google, any of these operate in China. And now it's obvious because they didn't want all the data to be stolen, and they were right. So they didn't want the Chinese data to be housed somewhere else, being manipulated. So what they are doing, so between China and US, they don't have to send armies anymore to, capture areas. Basically, US sends Instagram, uh, you know, Netflix, Amazon, Google, and they are sending Baidu, TikTok, all these to different countries. So the battle is over battle of technology, AI apps that we use every day. And that becomes what colonizes the nations. So then, you look at disruptive technologies, they create ethical issues. And then ethical issues you try to solve, and they create disruptive technology. Then the loop goes on and on. See, that's a loop. For example, I'll give you one example. Let's say we knew that this centralized, you see, like right now, all our stuff is centralized. Google, Meta, Amazon, Apple, uh, and Microsoft. Like really, they dominate everything we do. Like this call goes through Zoom, obviously a different company. Everything is recorded, everything is owned, the data is there. So it gives us definitely a nice way that we can talk together, but all the data is somewhere in a cloud, anybody can access. God knows what's being done to it with these algorithms and bots. So we say, oh, privacy and data ownership are lost because of that. Then I want accountability and transparency. I want no environmental impact. I want security. So then crypto or decentralized network, blockchain, was created because of that. So what I put blue on the areas that were good. So give you privacy and data ownership, blockchain. It gave you security, but then it took accountability, because the accountability, you can do money laundering using the whole blocks, using the Bitcoin. And then environmental impact is also high because it's distributed, it's not centralized. So, um, that's, let's see. Yeah. So just to end it, so I hope I convince you that, it's on the ethical front, you have to understand technology. To understand ethics well, you have to understand technology. Then when you look at technology, you say it's always a tool and weapon. I've never seen one that is just a tool. It's always a tool and a weapon. And then when you create a technology, it destroys an old way of doing things. And you have to pay attention to its growth rates. Is it exponentially growing? It makes it a lot more powerful. Now, again, maybe one way to look at it as a positive, you can say, well, solving ethical issues are great business opportunities. That's the way I see it. And again, thank you very much for your time. And glad to connect via LinkedIn. And if you have any comments, question later on during the day, let me know. It would be a pleasure talking to you guys.
Thank you, Hojjat.
Thank you.
And thank you for again for this wonderful lecture. We have some time left. Now it's time for students to post the questions. Who want to go first? I don't keep on the chat. Just raise your hand and then you can ask on live. Yolanda, you post a question. Can you speak?
I can.
Okay.
Thank you so much for your lecture. So, I actually got my undergrad in management back in the 90s. And at that time, it was all about corporate social responsibility and how corporations needed to develop those programs. And so, as I actually read, not read, but watched your previous lectures and today, that kind of like that's what hits me, right? It's like even if we're in the technology space now, companies that are making millions and trillions of dollars off of their products need to be held accountable for any unintended results from those. So I wonder if it's just a case of we just haven't gotten there yet and it's coming. So that was, I guess that's my reflection, and I would love to hear your thoughts on that.
Thank you, Yolanda. Thank you. You see, like it's a very interesting question because there's no easy answer, unfortunately. What we are seeing, is that right now, for example, if you look at the total market cap of few companies dominates the Nasdaq, and there is few in China, there is few in US. I would say 20 in US, maybe 10 in China. That dominates the entire thing. Now, they are proceeding with these things, and there is a lot of casualties in the way. For example, if you look at, let's look at ChatGPT. If you just look at the training data, they using the entire internet. They don't say, oh, this IP belongs, for example, to Dr. Chararong. He spent so much time to write this paper. Boom, it goes into algorithms. And then detecting those things is like impossible. And the training data is used and is all of it, you can think about it as stolen information. But according to public data, they say, yeah, it's all out there. We just trained our machines. So I don't know the answer to your question. It's a very difficult one, but I think the way we are moving fast, it's things are going toward again, like for example, a lot of work is going through drug discovery, a lot of it is going through energy, a lot of it is going through new fields. We spend a lot of times, I would say, on bits, and then now it's going to other fields being applied. Healthcare is one. Now, what are the tools and weapons that happens there? That's another thing which is going to come up again because we don't understand it today.
Thank you for your response, your answer, Mr. Hojjat. I think we have one more time for one questions. We'll want, okay, sorry. Why don't we make it two then? My first and then yes. And then that's it, okay? Because I know Mr. Hojjat he's working in Silicon Valley town, so is quite busy. Okay, Yash. Oh, my first, Mike, and then Yash.
Thank you. Thank you for the talk. I do have a question. I find that when we're talking about artificial intelligence and what the AI can do, obviously it's very fast. But you put up the slide there showing the size of the data centers, and it's been shown that even simple questions require an enormous amount of energy to actually solve. So while it is fast, its efficacy is reasonably good, though obviously it also has problems there. But its efficiency is lousy compared to a human brain, which only uses like 40 to 60 watts. Um, Combine that with the fact that the financial model actually seems kind of flawed because they're still using it for they're funding it, they're giving it out for free, funding it through data that they then use to advertise to people. Those people are losing their jobs to AI, so now you've got fewer people buying it. I mean, it just seems to be flawed. Do you have a different perspective on that?
Yeah, so let me just stop sharing here. That's so you see, like right now, the revenue of these companies is massive. So if you look at, for example, OpenAI and Claude, they're all like shooting for 100 billion revenue. I forgot in 2027 or something. So they're making a lot of money. Uh, they are, not profitable yet because, Uber wasn't profitable for a long time. Uh, but I think it's very important to pay attention the rate of progress. See, that's the thing with exponentials. So if your rate of progress is on exponential, the way those gorillas come, you would not see how fast they are growing. Like, I think just if we just ponder on that ChatGPT started public usage in end of November 2022. See, it's just like it's hard, mind-boggling that we passed Turing test and now they're even changing the definition of Turing test. All these. When I went to computer science a long time ago in RWU, my teacher was always talking about Turing test and how difficult it is. And I remember he said, I don't think it's going to happen in my lifetime. And he looked at us and he said, I don't think it's going to happen. Maybe your kids or grandkids, it would happen. And then, we just passed it. Nobody even cared. Like, how many of you paid attention that we passed Turing test? That gorilla came and passed. Like one of the most consequential dreams of humans was Turing test. And it just passed. Nobody even cared. Like you have to really search for it to see what the hell happened. You see, so rate of progress is very important to pay attention. So just in my opinion, think about disruptive technology and how fast is improving. And that's the scary part. Like, for example, when I came to Canada, I took a plane from London to, from Tehran to London was like 5 hours. London to Pearson was 7.5 to the same. Imagine if that thing was exponential, I would be here in a nanosecond. That's really the power of exponentials. And when I started, computer screens were black. You typed some cryptic messages. The entire company compute power wasn't as much as this. Entire company, when I started wasn't, they spent millions of dollars on a IBM mainframe and all that. It wasn't as much as this. So that's really the key thing. I think I would pay a lot of attention because there's amazing business opportunities in these disruptions. So, I think it's arguing about when singularity happens, when this thing happens, and I feel like it's very hard to guess. But looking over these ethical things that are happening and then saying, how can I do something good by addressing with some technology? But then as soon as you create that technology, remember that there is always these double-edged swords.
Perfect answer again. Okay, next question, last one from Yash.
Okay, thank you very much for the insightful lecture. So my question is, a lot of AI frameworks focus on like fairness and transparency, right? But given that most of the harm comes from like capitalism or like business needs, do you think ethical AI is achievable without changing the profit, like the profit models or the capitalist models?
A very good question. I feel like capitalism has been here from Roman days. We just didn't know it at that time. I don't think it's a new discovery. Like we have tried as human being different systems, how to operate. Some of them were socialist, some of them was this, some of them was middle of social cap. Every system we tried, and we say which one works, given all these conflicting stuff that we have. Like for example, the best analogy I have is that imagine you own the stock of Walmart, let's just say. You're a stockholder of Walmart. And then you go to Walmart, you want cheap things. As a stockholder, you want best return. So if you look at the CEO, you're saying, well, that's what I want. Cheap things, good returns. So if you don't pay employees, no Medicare, that's okay. You don't say it, but that's our incentive system. Unfortunately, it's like that. And that's the reason, capitalism rules the world. I mean, China is a capitalist society. It's just attuned with the engineering mind. There is an excellent book just came out called Breakneck Speed, Breakneck something. I will send it to Dr. Shannon. It amazingly analyzes China and US and calls it China is an engineered state, US is a lawyer state. And then it shows good and bad of both systems. It's an excellent read. I think it addresses some of the stuff you asked. And we compare AI data centers to the brain. That's another good thing. But remember, the brain has a lot of flaws.
Mm.
A lot of flaws. We make all the biases are in the brain.
Yeah.
We all have biases and all that. Everything is there, and we don't calculate routes like brain. We can play chess, we can play Go, we can write Fortran, Pascal, C, Python, deep learning, all these at the same time. That's the reason it chooses more power. And it's improving rapidly. So maybe one day it gets to 20 watts, but much more powerful.
Thank you so much, Mr.
Thank
Hojjat.
you. Thank you
Thank
very
you.
much.
And for student further question, contact Mr. Hojjat on LinkedIn, and from there you can ask your different questions from that. And one thing, as I told you, the class that I was one of my research project on study on how create AI and robotic without impact totally on human job. Hojjat is the one that inspired that research project. And right now we're
Thank
doing
you.
the data, the collection, and I'll get back to you and set up meeting with you on that.
Thank
Thank
you.
you
Thank
so
you,
much,
Dr.
Hojjat.
Chan.
We should meet
Thank
up for
you.
coffee soon.
Absolutely. Yeah. Thanks a
Okay.
lot, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, and then we are going after this, we're going back to our class.